Next up, we have our keynote address, which is Mr. DJ Bear Vanas. DJ Bear Vanas is a thought leader, a celebrated speaker, and a best-selling author whose expertise is showing people and organizations how to apply the warrior spirit at work. He is the author of the best-selling book, The Tiny Warrior, which is printed in 6 countries, and the novel Spirit on the Run. DJ's newest book, The Warrior Within, was published by Penguin Random House in 2022. DJ is an enrolled member of the Ottawa Tribe and a former U.S. Air Force officer. He inspires organizations to strengthen their tribe and practically apply warrior spirit principles to serve at their best, stay resilient, and lead with courage. For over 2 decades, he has delivered his dynamic programs in 49 states and overseas to clients such as Walt Disney, NASA, Intel Corporation, the U.S. military, Subaru, Costco, Mayo Clinic, and hundreds of tribal governments and organizations. He's also been invited to speak at the White House twice. He holds a BS from the U.S. Air Force Academy and an MS from University of Southern California and has served on the board of directors of the National Board of Certified Counselors. DJ is featured on the PBS documentary, The Warrior Tradition, exploring the warrior spirit traditions across Indian country, and was also the host of his own PBS special, Discovering the Warrior Spirit. DJ is also a regular contributing writer for Men's Journal magazine. I'm very much looking forward to hearing him speak today. I hope you all are too. Let's give him a round of applause as we welcome him to the stage.
Bonjour and good morning, at least for a few more minutes. I am really honored to be here. I have utmost respect for the work that you do. I know it's tough. I know it's difficult. I know the days can seem like they never end and the weeks just go on forever. When you are doing the type of work that you're doing day in and day out in our communities, it's difficult because when something goes wrong, who tells you? This is where you answer. I don't know if I made that. Who tells you if you mess up? Everybody. My God, how many are out there? 3 of you? Everybody, right? Everybody points the finger. Oh, you dropped the ball. You didn't do this well. But when you do a great job at what you do, in the difficult work that you're doing every day, who tells you that? Nobody. And that's the difficult part of this type of work. Is it's kind of like wetting your pants in a dark suit. Makes you feel warm and tingly inside, but nobody else really notices. Yeah, I'm wearing black jeans. You're noticing that right now. No, but it makes it difficult. And I just want to say this from the bottom of my heart. I don't know you personally, but I love you for what you do. There's not enough of you out there doing it. I know the work is difficult, and what I want to do during the time that we have is hopefully help you do it even better. To be able to take care of yourself in a different way, to have a different mindset towards the work that you do and what is possible in that work on a daily basis. Because that's really the burning question, isn't it? How do we stay resilient? How do we stay strong in the midst of chaos and in the midst of doing difficult work? That's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? Isn't it? You guys are killing me right now. You know that? Or with inflation, it's like a $786,000 question. But it's still valuable. And that's the one that's worthy of unpacking. And that's what we're going to do during the time that we have. But before we get into that, I just want to say, G. McGuetch, thank you very much to Cherokee Nation for putting this on, for all the sponsoring agencies, for all the people. Well, first of all, the survivors panel. Let's give them a round of applause for that courage. Holy cow. I was backstage just getting goosebumps with the conversation. But also to Chris Welch, to Paula, to Whitney, to Jennifer. I mean, these guys are bringing the house to you today. I mean, this is why these events happen. Hard work, focus. And I also want to say thank you to all of you, again, for what you do, for showing up, for being here. And hopefully, like I said, the things that we cover are going to resonate at a core level. And you're going to be able to take those and do what you do and do it even better at a higher level, more sustainable level. I'm originally from Muskegon, Michigan. I'm a tribal enrolled member of the Ottawa Nation. The way that we got our name was ridiculous. I want to share it with you really quickly. We were from the Great Lakes area of Michigan and southern Canada. And we had a vibrant trade network set up with all the tribes in the area. And then in the early 1600s, the French came and discovered us. Thank you for laughing. That was a joke. Okay, it sounds like there's 11 of you out there now. It's coming around. No, we were already there doing our thing, and they came up to our people, and they were impressed at what they saw because we had this vibrant trade industry, and they came up to our people, and they were impressed, and they were a little bit jealous, typical French. I always picture how this went down. Big floppy hat, peacock feathers, white tights, buckle shoes. I don't know that they were wearing that, but that's the movie I play in my mind. And they came up to our leaders, and they asked a simple question. They said, excuse me, monsieur, please come. Who are you? Well, we didn't speak French. They didn't speak our language, so we totally misunderstood the question. We thought they asked, what are you doing? So we answered. We said, Ottawa, which in our language means to trade. And they go, sacre bleu, you'll be Ottawa. And they wrote it down. We're like, no. Too late. The ink dried. History books were printed. We've been known for that ever since. And I think, what a ridiculous way to get named as a people. The first thing they catch you doing, God forbid, you're known for that for all time. Think about that. That could have gone a lot worse. I'm just waiting for your coffee to kick in here. Track with me on this. Yeah, they could have come across us while we're in the bushes. 400 years later, you go to a big gathering of native folks. Denver March Powwow, Gathering of Nations. What tribe are you? Cherokee. What tribe are you? Lakota. What tribe are you? PP tribe. I don't want to talk about it. So it could have gone a lot worse. But I know that my people were the original successful business owners in the state of Michigan. So for me to own and operate my own, as I have since I left the ranks of the military years ago, does not feel like a stretch out of my culture. I feel like I'm honoring it. We're creative, we're innovative, we're adaptive, and there are timeless principles in our collective tribal wisdom that are as impactful now as they ever have been, and I would argue this, they're more needed now than they ever have been. The fundamentals are still the fundamentals, the basics are still the basics, and I've always been a huge fan of traditional wisdom because they're seemingly small ideas that can have a huge impact in the way that we lead, the way that we live, and the way that we serve. And that's what I want to unpack during the time that we have. We don't have a lot of time. I'll try to get through as much as I can and keep you on schedule. But I am excited to be here. I hope these ideas resonate. I hope you run with them because, like I said, there's not enough of you to go around as there is. We can't afford to lose any of you to burnout or to get to that place where we just become apathetic, where we're beat down and we're overwhelmed, overworked, we're not taking care of ourselves, and we can no longer fulfill our service at the level that we've chosen to fulfill it at. And that can happen to any of us. The title of this program is called Calling All Warriors, and I want to unpack that word. Because when we use that term warrior, it's loaded. We live in a society now where everybody's got a preconceived notion of what that means. And a lot of times when you say warrior, it's that Hollywood image that we see all too often. We see it on the big screen, and we all know what it is, right? It's that big, sweaty, chiseled figure that's walking down the street and shooting bazookas and bad guys and knocking down buildings and shooting occasional surly looks at the camera, all in the name of glory. And when we talk about warriors from our tribal viewpoint, it's a very different role, isn't it? My people, we call a warrior Ogichida, and that term has very little to do with what we ever see on TV or in movies. That role was about taking our creator-given talent and ability, developing that over a lifetime so that we could be an asset or a benefit to the tribe that we served. And today, whether that tribe is your own family, your actual tribe, your agency, your team, your community, we all have a tribe to serve, don't we? Oh my gosh. If you agree with that statement, just say, mm-hmm. I didn't even make you open your mouth. I can't make it easier than that. Because I'm taking a big leap of faith. This is why we are here. We have committed our lives to serving other people. This is what the warrior role is all about. It's somebody who is willing to fight for something bigger than their own personal welfare. Somebody who asks the question, not what can I get, but what can I do for someone else? How can I protect? How can I defend? How can I contribute? A warrior is somebody who led by example, not perfect example. We all make mistakes. We all come up short at times. We all stumble and fall. But a warrior does not quit. They find a way to keep moving forward because they know ultimately they're not here for themselves, they're here to contribute to others. That's the impact they're trying to have in the world. Warriors, well, let me put it this way. The beating heart of that warrior role was all about service. And I think that's something everybody here can relate to. You are on this path right now. It's a beautiful path. It's a difficult path. But if we want to be better in this role, there's some things that we can do to allow us to be, or to foster us to be more resilient, stronger, more committed in what we do. But that beating heart of that warrior role is service. That's what it's all about for 3 reasons. Number 1, service is our highest calling. If we are not put here to serve, why are we here? Have you ever asked that question? Okay. Because of that awkward silence, 2 people actually shout out, no. No, I have not asked that question before. Well, and thank you, I appreciate that. But maybe we should. That's a really important question. That goes back to our purpose here as human beings. What gets us up in the morning? What drives us to do what we do? Service is our highest calling. Number 2, service is our deepest need. We all have a need. You have it, I have it, the people you work with have it, my daughters have it, your kids have it, and it's a need to feel what? Needed, wanted, valued, at some level, respected, that we matter, that the work that we do matters, at some level, and this is a need. And the great part is when we serve somebody else well, when we serve them with an open heart and we contribute fully, we get some of that need fulfilled. We feel valued in that moment. And we feel like $1 million. I mean, that's the best part of serving other people well, too. That's the dirty little secret behind serving someone else well. We feel great as well. So that's the second thing. It's our deepest need. And the third reason why service is the heartbeat of that warrior role is because it's the thing that outlives us. It's our legacy. It's what we leave behind us when we're gone. When we draw our last breath, that's what will be reflected on in the lives of the people that we impacted. I have been privileged in my life. In the last 25 years of my life, I've served over 500 tribal nations, from the Arctic Circle of Alaska down to Florida and from Maine out to Hawaii. And in every one of those tribal communities, when they lose an elder, they have a get-together, a feast, a memorial. Everybody does it a little bit differently, but it's all for the same purpose. It's to reflect on that person's life. And what do you think gets discussed more often than not? They don't talk about where that elder vacationed, or the car they drove, or the clothes they wore. They talk about those moments that person had an impact in somebody else's life, a real-world impact. A moment where they shared wisdom, or insight, or guidance, or humor, or encouragement to somebody who needed it the most in that moment. They talk about the times where that elder was a shoulder to cry on, or a hand to hold for somebody that was desperate to get one. That's what gets reflected on. This is the legacy that we leave behind us. So if it's that darn important, then it's really important that we learn how to do this to the best of our ability. Because the people that you serve need you. And there is always ways that we can improve what we do, right? There's always ways to, thank you. There's always ways that we can be stronger, more resilient. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about wiping the slate clean and starting completely over. I'm talking about small adjustments that we can make on a daily basis that can have a huge impact in the way that we serve others. And I also want you to understand this. Warriors were there to feed and protect their people. They weren't there to feed and protect their ego. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. Would you agree with that? Especially when we get stubborn, we get willful, we get prideful, we let ego run the show when we get in our own way and we don't get the help that we need. We don't put ourselves in a zone where we can get encouragement or we can get help. And we say, nope, I'm just going to figure this out. And we just keep going and going and grinding. and all of a sudden we start to slowly but surely fall apart. We need warriors, right? We need warriors. We need people that are willing to step up to the plate and do the hard stuff that you're doing on a daily basis. What we don't need is martyrs. And there's a difference. Martyrs go, 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 go till the wheels fall off, and then stand back and look at the debris field and go, how the heck did I get here? We need warriors, somebody who can step up and do this sustainably day after day and show up and deliver their best. And we can't do that when we're falling apart. Showing up and delivering our best, 100% of who we are and what we can do on a daily basis, if we're not taking good care of ourselves, is like planting carrot seeds and hoping coconuts grow. It's a complete disconnect from reality. And we're the only ones who can fix that. But I will tell you this, when we get back into alignment, we are operating with strength. We're operating at a whole different level, and we're going to be able to have an impact with others at a whole different level as well. But we've got to get this one right. I have found that working with groups like yours for a lot of years now, and I'm proud to say that, this is where the givers gather. And I say this lovingly, but it's true. I'm going to tease you a little bit, but one of the things that comes up over and over again, is, especially with groups like yours, is we'll talk about this idea. We need warriors. Take care of yourself. Get in alignment. People are like, oh, yeah. Oh, those are good ideas, and I'm going to do that. Next year, when the kids are grown, when this project is done, when this grant gets fulfilled, don't worry about me. I've got a vacation scheduled for the year 2032. I'm going to be good. And we wonder why we run into the problems that we run into. We need to be able to do this for ourselves on a daily basis. Like I said, we're our own worst enemy when we get in the way of this. We're here to serve others, feed and protect others, not our own ego and pride. So one of the principles that is critically important in this warrior role, and especially in the work that you do, is to think tribal-centrically about your resources. Because the reality is, you are never going to have all you want to do the work that you do. Would you agree with that? You're never going to have it. You're never going to have all the budget, all the time, all the personnel, all the support to do the work that you do. But if you look at what you have resource-wise creatively, you put your heads together, you can find a lot of times you have what you need. You know, one of the inspirations for this is every tribal community I've traveled to in my life has done a brilliant job of digging in with the resources they had in their own backyard to create success. You know, the Pueblo people in New Mexico, they live in an area that's very harsh. It's hot in the summer, cold in the winter. And they use the mud, literally the mud, in their own backyard to create adobe. And they built these beautifully engineered multi-level apartment complexes, some of which are built into the sides of cliffs that are still standing today, that were cool in the summer, warm in the winter. The Inuit in Alaska, they use sealskin for clothing, for containers. And sealskin is as warm as cloth, 4 times its thickness, and it's waterproof. My people, we use birch bark for everything, containers, but especially the canoes that made us famous. They were light, fast, maneuverable. A canoe 18 feet long could weigh as little as 35 pounds. I mean, this was woodlands engineering at its best. And the key point I'm trying to make here is use what you've got right now, in you and around you. Because we are so good at focusing on what we lack. Would you agree? I mean, we can have 99 out of 100 puzzle pieces, and what do we obsess about? The one. And we lament, and we hand wring, and we cry to the heavens, and we complain to other people, instead of saying, you know what, we don't have everything that we want, but I think we got what we need here. And it all comes back to a mindset, leveraging the heck out of what you have, be it ever so humble. And sometimes we find we already have what we need, but we're focusing on the wrong things. You know, a couple years ago, I went through Jacksonville, Florida, and I was there for a conference, and I ran out of toothpaste. Not a national crisis, but definitely an inconvenience. I went down to the front desk, asked the person working there, I said, do you have a gift shop? Do you have some place I could walk to and get toothpaste? I ran out. She goes, no, we don't have anything like that. She said, but I think I can help you out. And she started shuffling behind the front desk. I thought she was going to find like a toiletry kit. And she found what she was looking for, and she was so excited to give it to me. She goes, oh, there it is. Okay, all right. There you are, Mr. Vanas. Now, I know if you're more than 10 feet away, you're having a hard time seeing. This is an actual tube of toothpaste built for a Barbie doll. And she didn't just give it to me, she presented it to me. I mean, it was beautiful. She was like, oh, you know, I'm like accepting, I'm like, oh, man, is that tiny? And I got to admit, this is not what I expected. This isn't even at some level what I wanted, but this is exactly what I needed. And that's the mindset shift that we have to make. Because we will take an assessment of our resources sometimes, and we'll focus on things like technology, other people, people in the community. All these are great resources, no doubt. You know, our budget, our physical facilities, all those are important. But we tend to forget about other resources that are critical to success in what we do in service to others. Critical. Things like how we use our time. Time is the most precious resource we have. How we use it counts for everything. It defines our performance, our level of contribution, our level of service, our level of health, our level of happiness, based on where we're putting this precious resource, our level of connection to others. And it's a non-renewable resource. So it's not just important, it's absolutely critical. We're putting it towards the right things on a daily basis and not towards everything, which is the temptation, isn't it? I mean, we live in a world now where everybody's running around with their hair on fire, completely overwhelmed. Information overload is a normal daily occurrence, and we wonder why we can't get anything done. I think one of the keys to a life of service and especially good leadership isn't just what to say yes to, it's learning what to say what to. No, not now, not ever. It gives us a path of clarity in what we do. But time is non-renewable. Every other aspect of your life, I mean, you can have a house and it burns down, God forbid. You can build a new one. It's tough to do, but you can do it. You can have a job, lose a job. You can get a job again. You can have money, lose money. You can get money again. That's what the casino's for, right? You can even have love, lose love, and find love again. That's what 49s and eHarmony, or my favorite, farmersonly.com. Happens every day. But time is the only thing that we ever spend that we never get back. So it's not just important, it's critical. We're putting it towards the right things and not towards everything. You know, another resource that we take for granted, our own energy. I mean, we have X amount of energy to use on a daily basis. Would you agree with that? It is rebootable. We can recharge it, and we should. But a lot of times we don't. I mean, something as simple as getting enough sleep at night is absolutely critical to a good life and a healthy life, and a life of strong service to others. And we all know the right answers. You know, we know how to do this. And by the way, this is free. You don't have to do a budget line item. You don't have to get supervisor approval. And how many hours are we supposed to get at night to be at our best the next day when we serve other people? How many hours? We all know the right answer. 7 to 8. I had a guy a year and a half ago said 13. And I stopped the program. I said, sir, are you a cat or a toddler? I mean, 13 would be nice, but 7 to 8 is what we need to be at our best. And a lot of times we rob ourselves of that because we have so much else going on. We don't stick the flag in the ground and defend that time. It doesn't happen by magic. It happens by design. And if we don't carve that time out, it doesn't happen. But I'm telling you what, when we go in and we're dragging our knuckles and we can't keep our eyes open, we are not at our best. We are compromised. And this is where we have a tough time solving problems. We sometimes are not the best communicators. Sometimes we'll say something in a moment we regret for a week. We have a hard time staying focused. There's a lot of impacts in not carving that time out. And then the other resource we completely take for granted at times is our own skill set. The things that make us uniquely and powerfully us in the world that we live in, especially when it comes to contributing to others and having an impact in somebody else's life. We discount things like our experience, the hard times that we've been through in life, the ups and downs, our education, our training, our work ethic, our attitude, our communication skills, all the laundry list that makes us uniquely and powerfully us, we tend to sometimes neglect or completely ignore. What good is a thing, is a tool, is a power that you have that you never use? It doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve anybody else. We've got to own that stuff and recognize it, or it doesn't do any or doesn't create any impact. I am constantly inspired by this idea of it doesn't matter how much you have, what matters is how you use it. Because I'm constantly inspired by working with small agencies that have next to nothing in resources that are making magic happen for their people. Because what they don't have out here, they're making up for up here and in here. They're like, we don't have all that we want, but we're going to leverage the heck out of what we have. And we're going to make something happen. I mean, for crying out loud, our warriors back in the past, they would pick up a stick and a rock, and they would carve that rock and put it on that stick and create a tool that could either defend the village or get dinner that night. That's when we're talking about using the basics, going back to that. And I'm also passionate about this because I'm living, walking proof of this concept in action. My family back home in Michigan, our home community and my family, we had the same issues we see too much of in our society, especially in our tribal communities. My family, we had broken homes, we had unemployment, we had drug and alcohol addictions, we had suicides, we had incarcerations. My parents were teenagers in poverty when they had me. Everything they owned could fit in the trunk of a car, and they did not own a car. They would make one meal and eat it all week. They read to each other at night for entertainment. They didn't have money for a TV or a radio. I benefited from that tremendously. The first book that was read out aloud, my parents read it aloud, and I was there with them while they were doing it, was Mario Puzo's The Godfather. Yeah. Not a kid's book. Don't recommend it. Maybe that's why I'm so weird now. But they used what they had, resource-wise. I slept in a drawer for the first 3 months of my life. That was my crib. Which made it surreal to show up many years later to Washington, D.C., where I was slated to be a keynote speaker. I'm being checked in by the head of security who's got a submachine gun over his shoulder, looks down at the list, finds my name, and looks up and says, "Welcome to the White House, Mr. Vanas." I can't put that moment into words. I don't even try to. The point I try to make with that story is simply this. It doesn't matter where you come from, and it doesn't matter what you have. What matters is how you honor where you come from and how you use what you have every day. And it doesn't even matter what's in there. What matters is how you use it. For crying out loud, how many basic colors are there in the primary color wheel? Any elementary or Head Start teachers here? Man, we're getting real basic now. It's 3. And with those 3 primary colors, there are artists in this community that are creating incredible pieces of art mixing 3 different colors. The way they combine them, the way that they mix them, the way that they leverage them. How many basic notes in the musical scales? 5 to 7. This one always causes arguments, but it's a handful. And there are pieces of music in our tribal communities that have endured for over 1,000 years based on those simple notes. How many letters in the English alphabet? Don't guess. Don't guess on this one. I've seen this go terribly wrong. No, but things have been written with those 26 letters that have moved millions of people to action. It's not about what you have, it's how you use it. So use your good stuff well, and you're going to create the impact that you want to see. One of the other principles that is vital in the work that we do, and especially on that warrior path that we're talking about, is warriors face fear with courage and develop mental toughness on purpose. And I want to unpack both of these. Number 1, face fear with courage. Courage is something that we practice. We don't have it or don't have it. We get infinite opportunities in our lifetime to practice it and develop it. And it works just like a muscle. You do one thing that scares you, you build up capacity to do something else. The Plains tribes had a tradition called counting coup. And counting coup was when a warrior would face an enemy in live combat and wouldn't strike them down, they would simply touch them, either with their hand or with what was called a coup stick. And that was it. They wouldn't harm them. And the reason why that was more of an honor than actually striking an enemy down during battle is because of what it required. When somebody counted coup, you had to stand face to face, toe to toe, eye to eye with an enemy, with a threat, somebody that triggers fear, and say, I am not afraid of you. I'm so not afraid of you, I'm not even going to harm you. And that takes courage. That takes bravery. And there's a lot of moments that we have shown that in our own lives that we tend to discount or forget about. Because think about how many times you have had to do this over the last couple of years. You have had to make a tough call, a hard choice. You've had to face something scary. You've gone through loss. You've gone through pain. You've navigated stress, sometimes not beautifully or gracefully, but you are still here. We are here sharing breath and space. I mean, you've made it. So there's no question that you can get through this stuff. The question is, what are you doing with this stuff? Because we can get through a moment in time that's really hard, right? We just acknowledge that that's a reality. But it's not about getting through it, it's about growing through it. And the way that we grow through those tough times is by making sure that we remember what it took for us to rise to that moment and not discount it. You know, because sometimes we'll stumble through those bad patches and go, man, I'm glad I made it through that, and we're off to the next thing. I ask you, please don't do that. Please take a moment to reflect on what was required of you to rise to that challenge. Write it down. Remember it. Because in that moment when you honor yourself, recognizing your own strength, you're able to log that in and put it away for the future. You get to grow what I call a courage reservoir, where you're putting these moments away so that when you deal with that next scary thing, that next hard moment, you've got something to draw from. Does that make sense? Because it's great to have faith in our ability. It's great to have faith in our own talents, our own training, or what have you. But it's great to base our courage on evidence, on proof. And we've all got those moments that we've shown in our lives. We tend to forget about them. And I ask you not to, because you're going to need them as you face that next thing. And it's great when you're in that moment that you can say with great confidence, I got this. Because you've been here before. You know what it looks like. You know what it feels like. You know how to respond in this moment. That's a huge boost to us making it through and continue to move forward. Developing mental toughness, what is that about? That's being able to create a dynamic in our life where we can absorb the blows that life is going to throw our way. And we never know what those are going to look like, right? There's a great quote about mental toughness that's from a character we all know. He's been around for a while. The fictional character, Rocky. Rocky had a great quote about mental toughness, and it goes like this. It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. I worked on that all week. I hope that I was trying to land that one. No, but what a great quote about mental toughness. Being able to absorb those impacts and keep moving forward, keep getting up the next day and going out and doing our good work. That's what it comes back to. And the way that we develop that, there's a couple different ways that we can foster this in our life. Number one, stop trying to outwork and out-hustle our feelings, our emotions. You know, when we're going through hard times, the tendency is, because we live in a society that fosters this, the tendency is just to pack it away. You know, you go through loss, you go through pain, you're dealing with anxiety or stress, you're like, just pack it away, pack it away, pack it away. And we pack it away until we've got nowhere less to pack it. And then it starts to spill out of this little box that we try to jam it into, and it spills out in all kinds of interesting and toxic ways. So that model doesn't work. What happens is those emotions still catch up with us, but now they do it while we're exhausted because we've been trying to outrun these suckers for years. Instead, when something like that happens, when we're going through a tough time, when we're dealing with sadness, stress, pain, what have you, being able to sit in that moment and actually, and I'm going to say something dramatic, feel our feelings. Especially guys, we get squirmy about this. Ooh, I don't want to do that. Because we live in a society where we say things like, suck it up, walk it off, don't cry. You know, it transmits weakness. One of my favorite ones is from my coach in high school who said, rub some dirt in it. What a great solution to an injury, right? Well, we live in that kind of society and we think that that's going to fulfill us. But what happens is we start packing that stuff down and there's some negative impacts that show up in our own lives because it makes us inflexible. It makes us less compassionate to other people who are struggling. It makes us a heck of a lot more anxious and stressed because we know that this backpack is getting bigger and bigger and we're not dealing with it. It affects our relationships. It affects our focus. There's a lot of downsides to doing it that way. When we feel our feelings, we're able to process what's going on and we're able to move through it. And I will tell you, feeling your feelings, you are not going to ignite on fire. You are not going to melt away. You are not going to die. I know it feels like that in the moment, like, I don't want to deal with this. But when you do that, you offload that weight. And now you can really get back to the work that you were put here to do. And we try to out-hustle, out-work. I know the temptation is there, but it's not a good model. And when we stop and actually process what's going on, we get to take control of the dialogue. We get to ask ourselves some questions that can be hugely beneficial when we're going through tough times. We can ask ourselves questions like, number one, are these thoughts useful? You ever get into a moment where things don't go right, or you go through a really tough time and you ruminate? You start asking the same question over and over again that's leading you nowhere? You ever do that? I like the way, every day. That was the answer. Yeah, we tend to do that. It's like a tire, spinning a tire in a snowbank. We're not going anywhere. We just keep asking the same thing. We ask ourselves stuff like, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Why did it have to go like that? Why does she always have to be like that? We ask a question that leads us nowhere. So sometimes just saying, are these thoughts useful, is a great question, because when the answer is no, we get to hit pause on that soundtrack, or stop, and eject the tape and move on. Oh, the tape, I just aged myself. And some of you got suckered in that too. You're like, yeah. Second question we can ask ourselves is, what story am I telling myself about what I'm going through right now, or what I've been through? What story am I telling myself about what I'm going through or what I've been through? That is a powerful question. We are all storytellers. Jennifer mentioned that earlier about being a storyteller. We're all storytellers in our own life. But sometimes we create stories out of whole cloth that have not a lot to do with reality. Would you agree with that? It's just pure emotion showing up. You ever played Mad Libs with your kids or grandkids? Where you're filling in the blanks on a story and you end up coming up with this crazy story that makes everybody in the car laugh on a road trip. Sometimes we do that in our own lives. We create Mad Libs. And when we ask ourselves that question about what story am I telling myself, we can create a better story. We've all heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? There's also post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is where somebody actually gets stronger when they go through a traumatic event in their life. And one of the biggest indicators of whether that will become disorder or growth has to do with asking this question. Because sometimes something bad will happen to us, or two different people, same situation will happen, and when something negative happens, that person will say, you know what, this is terrible, life is always doing this to me, everybody's out to get me, this is never going to work, why do I even try anymore? They come up with a completely different story. It's never going to be the same. And the same thing can happen to another person, and they tell a different story. They say, yeah, this was terrible. I would not have chosen this. I would not have wished this on my worst enemy. But I'm here now. And I'm going to grow through this. I'm going to learn through this. And not only am I going to take those lessons to benefit my own life so I can store them away and remember what it took for me to get through this, but I'm going to be able to share this with other people in my life that I care about and love, and be able to help them through a tough moment too. That's a very different story, isn't it? And we're the ones who create it. The third thing that we can do when we talk about developing this mental toughness is fostering joy. Fostering joy, doing fun stuff for fun's sake. And my gosh, we get away from this so quickly and we suffer for it. We say things like, oh, I'll go have fun when I get all this stuff done, and we never get around to it. I'll go take a vacation when things aren't so busy. Guess what? They're always going to be busy. I'll take a break when, I have a moment of quiet. Sometimes those moments never show up. And we end up suffering for that. Putting fun into your schedule and your calendar is part of the great balancing act of life. Even breathing, something as simple as breathing teaches us over and over again that we inhale and then we exhale. It keeps us balanced. And when we're inhaling and we're doing the work, we need to exhale with the play. That gives us mental breathing room in the work that we do in our own lives. So fostering fun. There's something that's come back as a fashion trend, and it's come back with a vengeance. Puffy coats. Those used to be like trendy in like the late 70s, early 80s. Now they're back with a vengeance. And I've seen these, and some of you have these. I know, I'm not calling you out. But the big ribs, the big puffy ribs. And I saw one last year. It was so ridiculous. The guy looked like the Michelin Man. And his coat was white, which didn't help. But it was so huge. And the thing about puffy coats is the thicker they are, the more cold they keep out, right? Well, the more fun we fostered in our own life, the more of the sharp edges we keep out. The more of the negativity, the toxicity, the nastiness that's out there in the world, the more of that we keep out. We create a pad to absorb that stuff. And then the last idea with developing this mental toughness is, again, recognizing your own strength. Don't discount that. Own it. Honor it. Because not only are you going to be able to benefit your own life when you remember this stuff, you're going to be able to share stories with other people to help them too. And that's powerful. The last thing I'll leave you with, last two, I know we're getting short on time, is the idea that warriors were not bulletproof. We get ourselves into trouble when we over-romanticize this role, and we tend to. Because sometimes we think that that warrior role is inaccessible to us, and that's not true. That warrior role, it transcends race, age, stage of life, gender. It's a path there for anyone willing to walk it, and all of you are on it right now. But we don't want to over-romanticize this role. And we tend to when we think a warrior is somebody who does not deal with pain, they don't deal with fear, they're never scared, they never make mistakes, they don't need help, they don't need encouragement, they don't need to take a break or a pause for anything. All they need is the next worthy challenge. That's it. And that's garbage. That is a big fat lie, and when we tie ourselves into that, we set ourselves up for burnout, and we set ourselves up for a lot of the negatives that we already talked about, where stress builds up. We have to take good care of ourselves, or we cannot do the work we were put here to do, point blank. I'm going to say something that sounds Dr. Seussian. It's absolutely positively true. Here's what it is. You are the only you that you will ever have or be. Act accordingly. We sometimes falsely think somebody's going to come over a hill and save us from us. Somebody's going to come over and actually physically grab us and say, you got to sit down, you got to take a break, you got to take care of yourself. And we wait and we wait and we wait and we suffer and we suffer and we suffer. You know, we're going through that. We need to be able to take care of our stress and handle it the right way. We need to acknowledge that we are not bulletproof. We need to take care of ourselves just like our warriors in the past did. They watched what they ate. They took care of their bodies. They trained their minds. They developed their spirituality. They did it on purpose, by design, because they knew their responsibility level was so high. They couldn't afford not to do that stuff. And yet we sometimes put ourselves into a role where we say, I'll just get to myself later. And then when later shows up, we don't like later. I had that happen for me years ago when I kept packing my stuff away and kept saying, I'll take care of myself later. And I woke up with what I thought was a heat rash down the right side of my rib cage, top of my thigh, until I realized each one of these spots started to burn like they were touched with a match head, which is that condition called what? Shingles. The resurgence of chickenpox later in life brought on by, that's what later looks like. And again, I would not have wished that on my worst enemy. It was horrible. It was a walking nightmare for 6 weeks. Happened a lot of years ago, but that's why I'm a born-again advocate for self-care. And people will ask me, they're like, I'll have these conversations where people go, DJ, I'm so stressed out. What do I do? And I always tell them the same thing, self-medicate. Now, let me explain what I mean by that before you run away and tattle on me. I mean medicine from a tribal perspective, not from general society. In general society, when I say the word medicine, what usually comes up is a pill, a potion, or a vaccine, because we're programmed to look at it that way. But medicine in our tribal communities is very different. We call medicine mushkeke. It comes from two words. Mushke means strength that you gather. Second word, ke, means earth. Strength that you gather from the earth. And everything and anything can qualify as medicine as long as it keeps you strong, mind, body, and spirit. Anything can qualify. Spending time with family and friends, watching funny movies, pursuing a hobby, taking a vacation, comfort food, getting enough sleep at night, staying hydrated, listening to great music, whatever it is that you know is medicinal for you, incorporate that in your life. You're going to be better for it, you're going to be stronger, and you're going to be able to serve at a higher level. So little things that have the big impact. But we tend to get away from it and we say, no, I'll get to it later. Oh, by the way, medicine is also something we don't seek out when we're already out of balance and sick. In our tribal communities, medicine is something we incorporate in our lives every day to stay strong. So with that, I know we covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. I just want to leave you with this last idea. We oftentimes do not choose the conditions that we find ourselves in. The last couple years have highlighted this better than any other chapter that I can think of. But we might not choose the conditions or the circumstances that we're in, but we always get to choose who we are and how we are as we step through that part of the journey. That's in our power. That's in our hands. So with that, I hope these ideas make sense. I hope you run with them. I know where my power is and where it isn't, but I'm a big believer in options. I had a lot of people give those to me throughout my life. It's what's allowed me to be here. And I hope these make your path forward a little bit better, a little bit brighter, and I'll look forward to seeing you out there. Chi miigwech. Thank you very much.